Hello and welcome back to Coach Bill's Sports Show. As always, I'm Coach Bill. Thank you for joining us tonight. Today, whenever you may be seeing this, if it's your first time with us, please like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Today, as always, on Wednesday is our ranking show. So let's go ahead and get down into it. Rankings. We're going to go through it. We'll hit some honorable mentions first. So first up on the honorable mentions, we got Penn State, South Carolina, Baylor, Oklahoma, and Maryland. Surprised to see Oklahoma really hanging in here. It's a tale of two different teams with that team. When the quarterback's good, the quarterback's good. And when that quarterback's bad, that team is awful. So, interesting there. Got some Penn State action right here. Big loss to Michigan. A little bit of a bounce back. But now they got Ohio State coming in this weekend. And that's going to be a fun one. That's going to be a fun one for them. And then, last but not least, South Carolina. South Carolina's on a nice little winning streak here. 4 games in a row. They'll probably hit 6 in a row before this win streak really gets tested, because they got Vanderbilt and Missouri next on their schedule. But then they finish the season with, how do I say this nicely? They finish the season with one hell of a stretch. They go to Florida, come home for Tennessee, and then they go to Clemson. Florida is one of those teams this year that is just up and down, and you never know who you're going to get. So it's a wild card. Tennessee is the number 1 offense in the nation, and Clemson is their in-state rival. So that's some tough sledding ahead for the Gamecocks. But congratulations, you're definitely going to get, if you're not already, you're about to get to bowl eligible for the second season under new head coach. So congratulations. Growing, doing some things down there in Columbia. That's all I got to say about that one. Let's get into the top 25. So 25 to 21, we got Oregon State, Purdue, Washington, Texas Tech, and Illinois. Illinois is one of those teams right now that in my rankings fluctuates. And it's really interesting to see how their progression is going this season. They've yet to really bust into the top 10, but they've been slowly, bouncing back and forth in the 20s to teens range. And they're just an interesting team to watch this season. Let's go ahead and get into the 20 to 16. So you got Liberty, Texas, USC, Kentucky, Kansas State. Kentucky's got a huge game this weekend with Tennessee, who we'll see later. USC still in the race over there. Kansas State still in their conference race. Texas, I wanted to say that it was Quinn Ewers is the reason they lost 2 games, but then they lost one with him, and there's a couple pieces just missing from Texas right now. I don't think it's quarterback. There's definitely going to be a quarterback competition next year with Manning coming into the fold, but some interesting games ahead for these teams. Let's go ahead and get into 15 to 11. So you got Syracuse coming off a big loss to Clemson. LSU coming off a big win against Ole Miss, UCLA, Wake Forest, and Utah. Wake Forest is one of those teams that I've got as a sleeper team right now. Wake Forest and LSU right here are teams that I don't know if you want to see if you're a bowl team right now. If you end up in a bowl and you're against LSU and Wake Forest, their record may not be the greatest, but I don't know if I want to see either of those teams right now. Wake Forest, in particular, when it's talking about records, It's they have one loss, and it's to Clemson. So their record's not bad. LSU's got a couple more losses, but that offense is kind of finding a groove now, and Coach Kelly's getting them where they need to be. So let's go ahead and bust into the top 10. Number 10, starting it out strong with Oregon. Bo Nix, seems like all you needed to do, my guy, was stop playing SEC opponents. Undefeated this season against non-SEC opponents. And he's doing his thing. He's having a solid game every time. So, really excited for that young man. Had some struggles down there in Auburn, and it's good to see him get a second chance and really kind of stand on his own 2 feet, show what he's kind of made of and what he's about. This next one I'm going to catch a little heat for, so let's just go ahead and get into it. Number 9 is Ohio State. So in my rankings, which we'll get into later, there are certain things that are held to a higher standard for the rankings, and that's road wins, and that's road wins against ranked teams. Ohio State, I think, has played 2 road games so far this season, which, good on you, Ohio State, for scheduling like that. But this weekend is the first real test for them on the road at Penn State. Do I think they have a lot to worry about? No, it's a super talented team. They'll probably make the playoffs, even though they're at 9 on my rankings. But that's more based off the algorithm and it showing that they haven't really been challenged or had that tough competition. They've not really battle tested, I guess is the best way to put it. And then when your 2 biggest games, one is Penn State on the road right here, and then your last one is Michigan at home, it's not the toughest of schedules. So that's what's dinging Ohio State right now. It's not the talent on the team. The team is extremely talented. It's just simply the schedule. And to Ohio State's point, all they've done is play the schedule that's been put in front of them and beat the teams they had to beat on the field, which is better than what I can say for this next team. Ole Miss. Tough loss for Ole Miss at LSU. I don't know if this is Ole Miss's new MO or not, but it seems to be the past few years they start off super hot, super strong, and then when they get to that 7-8 win range, they kind of stumble. They still got double digits last year, I believe. If they didn't, they were 9. They were 9 or 10 last year. But I want to see them bounce back because I know they still have Alabama down the road. And that Alabama game is, let's be real, the SEC West is stuck between LSU, Ole Miss, and Alabama right now. Alabama, in my mind, is the best team in the West, but they still have to play the game. They still have to play it out on the field. Another one that I think right now is currently ranked higher than their in-conference opponent is Michigan, but I don't know if they're the better team. And that's still on us to tweak the algorithm, looking at it. Moving forward, maybe there's some stuff we need to account for, but we'll hit that when we go into a review. When we go into reviewing it at the end of the year, kind of seeing how it hit, where it showed us stuff beforehand, and where it just kind of missed the mark. Like I've said before, the algorithm is always growing, always improving. If you ever stop improving, you're dead. So, Michigan. I mean, Michigan plays that old school style of football. They're going to run the ball down your throat, and you know it's coming. They just dare you to stop it. That's Michigan's MO. That's exactly what they did against Penn State. They had a couple turnovers that allowed Penn State to stay close in the first half, but that run offense just decimated them in the second. Michigan's been a little bit more tested, which is why they're higher than Ohio State right now. But that end of the year matchup is really going to decide this game when Michigan goes into Ohio State. It's going to decide that conference. It's going to decide the college football playoff appearance. There's a lot riding on that game in particular, as there should be with that kind of a rivalry game. Another team that still has a shot at their championship, Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State and the next one up are my two favorites to play in the Big 12 Conference Championship game. They do it best of the two best teams. They don't do it by division. So Oklahoma State still has a chance. I think the TCU game might have gone differently if Oklahoma State's quarterback was at 100%, but TCU wasn't at 100% either. So I'll be interested to see a rematch. And speaking of TCU, gave it away. They're my number 5 team. Horned Frogs are undefeated. Everybody that's lined up against them has fallen. They just played their schedule and played it well. Offensive powerhouse. The wide receiver down there, it's just a big boy making plays. I've said it a couple times. The Big 12 is the most entertaining conference in America right now, and TCU is just the highlight of that for me. So let's go ahead and get into our playoff contenders right now. Number 4, we got Georgia. Georgia goes to the biggest cocktail game in the country against Florida this week. Shouldn't have too much of a problem. We'll break that down in Friday's game breakdowns for the weekend. But Georgia's number 4, doing what they needed to do. They've had a couple stumbles, but they've won every game. So can't knock them until they lose. Number 3, University of Tennessee. So at number 3, you're going to already see there's a little bit of controversy here. A team ahead of them, Tennessee has beaten, but this came down to literally 2-point difference, and I think that just shows how close. We saw how close they played when they played, and it just shows how tight of a game this is between number 3 Tennessee and the team that we'll be getting into next. Tennessee's number 1 offense in the nation, number 1 yardage, number 1 scoring offenses in the nation. They number 1 in pace. I think they run the most play. I think they're top 5 in pace for most top 5 in plays per minute. So this week against Kentucky, coming in wearing the All Blacks with the all black helmet too. Ooh. Love that stuff. I know some of the older Tennessee fans don't, but for me personally, I love it. Love seeing it. I have a feeling with how the schedule breaks out for the next few games, if Tennessee wins the next 2 games, there will be no touching them for one of the top 2 spots. But right now, based off of last week's game, because they didn't play a tougher opponent and the team ahead of them did, that's just how it breaks down. Speaking of the team ahead of them, whoops, wrong way. There we go. Number 2, Alabama. Alabama showed that Alabama is who they are. Yes, they lost to Tennessee, but Tennessee is an offense that can do that against a lot of people. So when Alabama plays that kind of offense, they're going to look different than they do against every other team in the nation. There's honestly maybe 3 or 4 teams in the country that can play with Alabama at that level. Tennessee just happened to be one of them that night. So the one loss for Alabama, I don't ding them very hard for it, especially since it was a road loss to a ranked team, which you'll see here in a minute. And it was only by a field goal. It's not like they got blown out. So, strong team. I really hope to see an Alabama-Tennessee rematch in the SEC championship game. I think that would be absolutely amazing. But that's selfish. I'm a college football fan. I love great games, and I think that would be an amazing second game between them. But let's go to number 1, Clemson Tigers. Clemson right now they're just doing what they're supposed to do. They beat their last real opponent in the ACC. So it's essentially, let's get stuff right before we hit the college football playoffs time for Clemson. As long as they can keep stuff moving ahead. A little bit of a competition. I don't want to even call it that. A little bit of a controversy between the fan base for who's the quarterback. But when you look at the game, look at the script, it's not even that the freshman Kubiak is playing better than DJ in that game. He just came in when the surge happened. I don't know if that surge was because of him. He only went 2 for 4 with 19 yards passing. So let's not jump ship on DJ yet. If Coach Sweeney says that DJ's still his guy, I'm going to trust that man. He's got the rings on his hand, and I don't. So if you've got multiple rings, fair chance to say I'm going to trust your decision-making process, because there isn't many that have them. Nick Saban, Coach Sweeney, 1 and 2 in the poll right now. It just shows you. Coaching talent, coaching experience means a lot. So, as always, we've got some tiers that broken out. So, our playoff teams are Clemson, Alabama, Tennessee, and Georgia. On the outside looking in is kind of an odd way. I couldn't really figure out how to say this one. But TCU, Oklahoma State, and Michigan have the best chances right now in my rankings to break into the playoff teams, especially since Tennessee has to play Georgia. And since either Tennessee or Georgia has to play in an SEC championship game, there's still a lot to happen up here. The same is with TCU and Oklahoma State. They still have a championship game to fight for. Michigan and Ole Miss still have a championship game to fight for. Or Ohio State. Michigan, Ohio State have a championship game to fight for. Ole Miss still has an outside shot. Oregon has an outside shot, with their one loss being to Georgia. Yes, it was a bad loss. But it's not as bad looking now because we've seen Georgia do worse to other teams. I hope that makes sense. Utah is fading out of. Utah jumped high, especially because they had early season rankings, and then they had some bigger wins, especially that win against UCLA. But they're starting to come down to earth, and I have a feeling they're going to drop out here in the next. They're going to drop out of this still has a chance area here in the next couple days, or pretty much after this weekend. I feel like they're going to be out of it. So, had one person who I know personally tell me that they'd like to see a little bit on the model. So, threw this in here for them. With the criticism I've gotten on the algorithm, and it shows. I'm trying to build it to show more of what you've done compared to what your preseason rankings were. So for that instance, road wins, you get 1.5 because it's tougher to go on the road than it is to win at home. Home wins against a ranked opponent, you get 2.5 times boost on on the stats we're putting in. Road wins against a ranked opponent is a 4 times boost because, again, it's hard to go on the road, and then you're beating a ranked opponent on the road. And then if you can shut out, which is extremely, extremely hard to do, if you can shut out a team in college football, you get 5 times the bonus. Now, there's some negative stuff, like if, for instance, Texas A&M lost 20 points when they lost to Appalachian State. If you're a Power 5 team and you lose to a Group of 5 team, you lose 20 points. If you're a Power 5 team and you lose to an FCS team, you lose 100 points. So there's some weighted stuff to it. There's some negatives there as well. We try to take into account all wins and losses. But just as a little reference down here, Tennessee's win at LSU, because it was a road win and LSU was ranked at the time, which they're ranked again now, weighs heavier than Ohio State winning at home against Iowa, who came in as an unranked team. So just trying to give you a little peek in behind the curtain while we still try to adjust the algorithm, because, hey, we're not perfect. We'll never claim to be. It's going to be a consistent grind to try to figure out, what exactly we need to fine tune. But if you have any comments, please put them down below. If you think we're missing something, if you think there's something we're overlooking, please put it down in the comments. But as always, thank you for watching. Hope you had a wonderful time. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Please like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Definitely helps us out here. And have a wonderful rest of your day. Ready, break.